All right. Let's open in prayer, and then we'll go from there. Father God, I just thank you. Thank you for your hand in our lives, that you are orchestrating all things in all creation, and in amongst all the things that you are coordinating and orchestrating, you are orchestrating our lives. You've opened the door for me to have a grand adventure with you in Africa, and I get to come back and share with these that are my body, my family, Lord, your body, but my family. I pray that you would bless this time, bless the time that we share, and allow it to be an encouragement and an opportunity to learn and grow what you're doing in the world. Thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. All right. So, boy, there's just a lot. I started off, I've come back from short terms. We've done, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you come back and you've got 400 or 500 pictures, and you're like, oh, okay, in 3 weeks I can, a picture a day, and I'll have, 20, 30 pictures. That'll be good. I had over 1,000 pictures. I was like, oh man, I don't know where I'm going to go, and so, but I want to touch on a big picture, a couple of big picture, and then touch on the people and the things that God has taken me through. So first of all, the first thing I want to touch on is the ministries that I'm working with. So there's Hope for Home. We met Hope for Home down in Guatemala in 2018. Anita was working there. She had just transitioned. She'd passed on the management of the orphanage that we worked on to someone else, and then she was working with a special needs group down in Antigua, and so, or just outside of Antigua. So I went down to meet them to see what she was doing, help her move into her house, and I got to meet people there, and one of the people that was there was Susie, who really caught my attention as someone who was really pursuing God and honoring all those little kids that she was working with. She just had a heart for them, and it was just neat to watch. And so I stayed in contact with her and found out she was going to Africa. So in the long run, I tracked where she landed in Africa, which was Hope for Home, Liberia. And so stayed in contact with her and supported and listened to the ministry and watched what Don was doing there. And I was just impressed with their vision and their implementation of their vision. They're really pressing and pursuing God and honoring Him in all that they do. And so it was fun to see. In April of last year, God impressed on me that I should go to Africa, and I really didn't know why. And long story short, some of you have heard this, but I just said, okay, I'm getting a ticket. I'll go down there. I had 2 ministries I was going to visit, and Hope for Home, Liberia was one of them. When I landed there, they opened the door and they said, hey, what are you doing down here? I said, well, I'm just in obedience coming down to see you guys. And they said, well, you're an engineer. Would you be able to help us lay out a floor plan for a clinic? Okay. So I'm thinking this is like a couple days sketching and then throw it out. And we get done, and we had about 6,000 square feet. By the time we get done in my 2 weeks there, we're up to about 11,000 square feet. And now we're at 12,000 square feet plus. So the whole porch and everything, it's almost 18,000 square feet. We started off with a clinic with just outpatient service. Now we have outpatient service, we have inpatient service, we have surgery, we have OB, we have delivery. All of this in a building that started off as just a little clinic for kids to visit. They are providing 100% free medical service for any kid, anybody under 18 that comes. So it's an amazing thing. God is providing. It's very much just an open door. And Don says, as they come, God will provide, and they have been. And so when I was there in November, I was watching the clinic, and they were receiving 20 to 30 kids a day. And so we were talking to these people that were funding and the doctors that were going to be working in it and say, well, man, if we could get this clinic together, we could maybe get 75 a day getting through this thing. And they're like, wow, that's I guess that's pretty big. I don't know. I don't know these numbers. When I left there, they were consistently breaking 100 a day in a 30-foot diameter shed. 100 kids a day that they're seeing. And we're opening up this clinic that's going to be 12,000 square feet. And I can't imagine where they're going to be going here, but it's going to be huge, and it's going to be impacting the world. If you go online and look at this website, Hope for Home, and listen to their video, Don explains how the Ministry of Health views this clinic. It's in the eastern half of the country. The main capital is in the western half of the country. That's where all the medical facilities are right now. So you drive 4 hours across basically jungle, and then you pop out into Bonga, and then there's another city up close to Guinea. But those are the two population centers, and there's no real medical out there. There's a couple little clinics. We stopped by, and long story in that one, but we stopped by and saw one. It was just a joke. There's no medical personnel. They just have people standing around that have no medical training, and they just try and help is all they're doing. So we're putting in a facility that will have European-trained doctors, physician's assistants, and we'll have staffing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all for free. It'll be transformative in Bonga, but the county, Bong, but all the adjoining counties and even into the adjoining countries in Guinea, they're already looking at sending people our direction. We haven't even built a place yet. So it's amazing what that has opened up. But Hope for Home was established to minister to kids. That was Don's start, and then he started doing some discipleship and pastoring, but he's got schools going, and he's had to back off on the pastor training because the schools that they've got going are taking all of his time. He's got 2 schools going right now, one in Denta, which they're 100% responsible for, and then one in Bonga, which they are just supporting the students. They have a staff and a facility that they have supported and paid for, but they've stepped out and allowing the local church to run that. But they're also looking now at starting a whole new school in a different zone because kids are walking. There are no school buses, so you don't have to go very far before you're out of the range of a given school. So they can open a school in Bonga that's out of the range of the existing schools. And so he's looking at doing that. So Don's vision and ministry is to the kids of Liberia, and the special needs kids are the top priority, and then just educating kids is the next priority. And so we're having that. But this medical thing came up as they started to expand. So the next slide is the founder of His Safe Haven, which is the special needs ministry, and they established a village, and they were trying to do something in Monrovia, and they weren't able to do that. And they connected with Don, and Don opened the door to creating this village, and they drew up the plan separately. He and the founder of His Safe Haven drew up this plan, and they came up with almost an identical layout. And Don just like, okay, God's working. We're going to start building. So he started building, and then the money came in, and they were able to build 9 homes. They have 9 homes. They have 3 more in plan, but they have to hire moms and stuff like that. So they started that ministry, and I don't know if it says here. You can go in on the website for His Safe Haven and find all this information. You can support them directly, or you can come through Cornerstone, and we can support them through Africa, donations to the African mission. But this is a picture of the founder, Christina Hoffman, and her family. And then the next one is the supporting team that is associated with Hope for Home. So the next picture up top is Don and his family. And then there's Susie on the right in the middle picture, and Susan on the left. Yeah, your left. And they are the key people that are running His Safe Haven. So Susan, the Liberian physician's assistant, is the director of His Safe Haven, watching all these special needs kids, making sure that they're taken care of. She runs everything from security to medical to food. She oversees the whole place. So it's quite a job, and she does a great job. This is a staff that's down below. So I just snapped these off of the website so you guys could see some of the ministry that we're working with. And finally, the group that came into the picture in November, just before I got there, was Live 2540. So this third slide is Live 2540's website. If you go on there, Live 2540 is Matthew 2540. Says, and the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me. So this is their vision is to be ministering to the least of these, and they're ministering all over the world. If you look at this little thing here, it says they're a nonprofit organization bringing medication, food, education, and hope to people in the U.S., Ecuador, Burkina Faso, Liberia, the Philippines, and Sierra Leone. So they are working. They started off as Orphan Aid Liberia, and they expanded the scope to now they're in 5 different countries, and they're helping kids all over. And they just raise funds and support working ministries that are doing something. And so they got a hold of Don and his Hope for Home vision of medical support for the community, not just the special needs, but the whole community. And they said, we can help with that. And so in November, they started a fundraiser, and they've raised over $350,000 to put in this hospital. Well, we're spending it, but we're also expanding the scope because we started off with a little tiny thing, and now we've got a big facility. So that just gives you a quick look at what we're doing, the ministries that I'm working with. I want to take a quick picture up from 30,000 feet. Well, probably not, only about 3,000 or 4,000 feet. But this is what we're looking at, the property that I've been living on for the last 3 months. So if you look at the little green square down lower right, that is where my bungalow is. So I'm down here in the corner. It's actually the top of the hill. So this whole thing is slopes down towards the clinic, which is the big rectangle up there. Slopes down there, and then it rises over to the left, and that's where the residential lots are. And we're building houses over here for a medical team that are going to come and live full time. So in June 14th, the doctor from Great Britain is coming with his wife and their newborn baby, and they're going to live over here on the left, in the upper left little square up there. We're building a house for them up there. Christina Hoffman is bringing her 18-year-old special needs boy and her husband. They're moving in, and they're moving in the one just below that. So we're building a house there. So those are 2 buildings that we haven't started yet. In the lower left, so you don't see it because this is an old picture, but Don's house is being built. So he has a house for him and his family. And then the dark square right in the middle with the little arch in the circle, that's Susie's place. And this family here in Cornerstone has made a major impact in supporting her house being built. So we put a lot of the funds together for that. And it's been great to see. She's got it under roof now, and they're working on starting to do the ceiling and the finishes inside. So she's trying to have that done by the end of this month. She wants to be in there living. So we're moving that forward. The other one is future home or chapel. We're not sure what's going to go on in that other space. But this just gives you an idea of the layout. They bought this property. They have more property coming. They're looking at starting a school in this zone. They also want to do a full-blown adult hospital. Don has a vision of whatever he can do to minister to the people of Liberia and point them to God. And he's excited about this one because it's Jesus Loves Me Clinic. And when you go to Jesus Loves Me Clinic, it says Jesus loves me. And he's got paintings and murals, and he's going to have this theme throughout. He's hired an artist that will paint themes because they don't read. A large portion of the population doesn't read, but they are very oral and visual. And so he's putting up pictures throughout the hospital. He's already painting them now that he's going to have painted on the walls so that they can see the gospel message in the halls. when they're sitting in the waiting, they'll see the gospel message. And it's just an awesome vision of how to reach people where they're at. You don't have to bring them up to where you're at. You want to reach them where they're at. And Don's vision has been really powerful in that. Just been very strong at working in that. So let's take a look real quick. This is my bungalow. So I lived there for the first month in March, and then the whole team moved into this as an office. So if you're looking at this picture, the window on the right is my bedroom/office. The windows on the left are the porch where they have some of the offices, and then there's behind that's a living room that they use as office. And beyond that is 2 more bedrooms and then another porch. So they use all of that space as office, and my little space over in the corner is my bedroom office. It's kind of an interesting dynamic, but I'm used to living and working in the same space, so it's worked out pretty well. All right, next picture we'll get going is a picture of inside my office. When I came in, they had it laid out. I've rearranged it a little bit, but Susie, of course, had it all laid out in beautiful, what she's custom Lapa bed covers and pillowcases, matching pillowcases and all this other stuff. Darryl's a bachelor, so I just tuck it in really tight, and I put a sheet over me, and I never get into the bed, actually, because it's just too hot. You're at midnight, you're looking at 89 degrees. So I find a fan if I can and try and cool off and stay inside my barred windows. And I get to watch all the roommates that I get. We'll see some of those here in a bit. Next picture is a pair of roommates that I got. Hello, guys. Welcome. The one on the left is a 4-inch flat spider. It's the biggest one I've seen of the flat spider variety. There's other ones that you'll see that are bigger, but that was a pretty big one. I was like, wow, that's impressive. I did not catch him. I'm sorry? Not that I know of. But I've never taken time to let him bite me and find out. But I've killed most of them. But that one got away. He was big, and he was back in the corner. I took a picture, and then I went to get him, and it's like, bam, they move fast. So I don't know how they do it, but they move really fast. And then the little chameleon lizard things are all over. Just fun. They're not anything that stresses me out. I kind of enjoy having them around. So the next picture is, this is Susan, our librarian PA. And when I got back, of course, I'd met her in November and then in January, but I'm coming back in the tail end of February. I get back, and she announces that she's getting married. So this is her fiance at the time, Sylvester. They are now married. They went through a wedding in the middle of April. So that creates a lot of dynamics because she's living on a compound that is female only. No males are allowed to live there. So they got married, and it created some management issues, but they're working through it. Next picture is my mode of transportation when I first got there. It was interesting because Lawrence, who is our job site superintendent, says, are you worried at all driving through Bonga? I said, no. Should I be? He goes, yes. He said, last month, a guy was taken out by a machete while he was riding his motorcycle, and they just took the motorcycle and left him laying. That's the kind of thing that you're dealing with. So every time that I had to drive that thing in the dark, Don would follow me to make sure that I got to where I was going. I've gotten very used to driving through there. I've never had a problem. I had one time where a guy jumped up when I slowed down in a crowd, jumped up on the running board, started banging on the window, and I just ignored him and kept going, and he jumped off. But you never know what's going to happen. It's fairly Wild West kind of environment. They're not really aggressively illegal, but their morals are a whole lot different than what we are used to here. Survival of the fittest is really part of the process. So you kind of have to watch what you're doing. So me riding on the motorcycle, although it was fun, I used to race motorcycles and play and that sort of stuff. I decided that I'd opt for a vehicle as soon as I could. So I got a little ways. But the next picture is a picture of the Riley kitchen. living room, dining room area. It's chaotic. There's 9 people living there. It's always fun. They are always laughing, pulling pranks on each other, doing fun stuff. This picture I took, we were having Sunday dinner, and dessert was brownies. But somebody had sneaked in underneath the tinfoil and stolen brownies, so there weren't very many brownies left. And so there was a little trial that went on about who stole the brownies, and then we split all the brownies, and there was one brownie that they split 3 ways because the 3 guys that stole the brownies only got a little communion-sized piece of brownie. Everyone else got a full brownie. So it was just fun entertainment, but it's just a really neat family environment and very casual. I love being there. It's a lot of fun to be visiting with those guys. This is, the next one is little Hannah, and she's in the compound. I don't know if I mentioned, but, I did. So when Sylvester came in, one of the criteria is no men in that compound. So I'm living right next to the compound, if you remember the picture. I'm within 100 feet of the first house. And so I'm kind of in the zone that I'm not supposed to be in. So I kind of have to watch what I do. So I don't really get to wander around the village and see the kids because I'm a single guy and I'm not supposed to be wandering around in the village. But she lives right on the corner that I have to walk around. So I get to see her every day. And she'll come running out to me and she'll talk and tamaba. So she has this little term that she threw out at me for a long time I didn't figure out. But she's always yelling and waving and making sure that she gets my attention whenever she's out there. So she's a lot of fun. The next picture is Dennis. He's the compound cook. So he's cooking, and he's cooking for 30 special needs kids, plus moms, plus their own kids. So somewhere around 60 people that he's cooking for every day, plus the work crew when there's office staff. The office staff he cooks for. He doesn't cook for the construction crew. But so he's cooking for 60 to 70 people every day, three meals, 2 meals a day. And just a great attitude. That smile says it all. He's always positive, and just a joy to work with, and I love it. And of course, he spoils me since I'm the only guy that lives on campus, so I'll get like a cinnamon roll will pop up on my place, or he'll cut up a pineapple for me or something. He's a great guy. And then I try to bless him too, because he is a real blessing. That next picture is Amos, and Amos is in the blue, and his buddy Job Sumo. There are 3 of these guys. I didn't get a picture of the other guy, but they're all deaf, and they're part of the landscape crew, and so they take care of maintenance of the place, and they do grass whipping with a bent machete. They got a bent blade on it, and they just swing, and that's how they mow the lawn. And they've got several acres that they are constantly mowing, so it's a full-time job to just go around the place, keep the weeds down. And there's in the town, you'll see villages, all these mud huts. They always have dirt all the way around the house. And like, in this place, how can it be so dry and barren? They said no. They get a little metal hook and they go out there. Anything that's green, they cut it off because snakes like grass, and so they don't want grass growing around the house. Snakes and scorpions will hide in that, and so they go out and they hook the grass. And of course, Dawn, we were going to somewhere, and this gal was out there knocking the grass out. And I go, "What's she doing?" Oh, she's a hooker. She's hooking the grass. I'm like, a hooker? Are you kidding me? My pastor just said that. But no, that was his term. He said, my terminology may be a little off for America, but in Liberia, she's a hooker. She's out there hooking the grass. And that's a very serious business. They keep the grass down, anything green, so that their kids can play, their chickens can be safe from all kinds of challenges. Next picture is another site. The red spots are where they have security. So they have a security 24/7 in those 3 spots, and then they're walking around the campus. So I just wanted you to get a feel for, again, what we're dealing with. In my location up on the hill, I'm right above the security guys. So they come by my house in the middle of the night and say howdy. Next picture, when I started off, I spent the first month there all by myself in that place. And so I have a 50-gallon garbage can in the bathroom. There's no running water, no electricity. So every morning I would have to go down to the pump. It's 100 yards down the hill, zigzag around, go by little Hannah and say hi and grab 2 buckets. One's 2.5 gallons, one's 3.5 gallons. So I got 6 gallons every trip. I got 50 gallons to get. So it's 3 to 5 trips up, depending on how much I used the day before. And that's your start for the day. And then you got to sweep out the place because you got to make sure that those little bits of dirt aren't something that you don't want. And so you go clean out the whole place. So I sweep out the whole place, and then I get everything cleaned up. About an hour and a half into the day, you're set to do your Bible study, do your exercises, and actually start your day. It was kind of interesting because I always start early, and so you're getting up before light. Well, there's no power. And so now you have to have a headlamp. Well, my headlamp would die out before I got very far. So pretty soon I'm getting used to working in the dark because my headlamp would be dead, and I'm trying to get stuff done. It was interesting. But it was fun. Every time you go down to the well, there's a group of kids down there, and you get to play, and they're joking and goofing around. So that's the well. One day we're going to the job site, and this lady calls out and says, they call him White Man Don, or Pastor Don, or Dr. Don. And she said, Pastor Don, Pastor Don. And so we walk over there, and she says, I need you to take my daughter into your compound. And he says, well, what's the deal? Let's hear her. And she starts telling him, I came from Monrovia. Saved up all my money so I could make a trip out here. I need you to take my daughter. Her dad, or I guess if you think about it, it's her significant other, is abusing this girl. And I don't think she's going to survive. He said he's going to kill her because he doesn't want to keep her around. So I want you to save her. And Don's like, well, it sounds pretty extreme, but I need you to check on this. I want you to go talk to Susan, who's the director, and she'll go through the process of application, and you got to get references and find out if this story is really true, because obviously it's always nice to have someone take something off your hands that you don't want, and there's a lot of unwanted children. And so she goes in, and we go back down to the site. Later on that day, I get a call over the radio. She ran. That's all they said. And Don immediately knew that mom had taken off and left the baby. Well, she didn't leave the baby on site. She took off out the gate, and then as soon as she got out of sight of the main gate, she dropped her in the ditch. She's not self-mobile, so she was just laying in the ditch, and she took off running. So Don had one of the security guys come over and grab my keys from my motorcycle and get into town and find her. And then we jumped in the Land Rover and went after her. And when we went by, there's a whole group of people standing around this girl laying in the ditch. And Don says, pick her up. Put her in the compound. Bring her there and take care of her. We will be back. So they don't see, they don't comprehend things the way we do. I mean, if you saw a baby or a young girl, helpless, thrown in the ditch, you'd pick them up. They're just standing there 5-6 feet away, not even getting close to her, watching her. Like, do something. It's just, the comprehension of how they view things different than we do was amazing to me. So anyway, we drove into town as fast as we could. The security guy had gone through in the motorcycle, which you can get a lot faster. He found the mom at the local taxi stand, getting her ticket to go to Liberia, or to go to Monrovia. He grabbed her, told the driver, no, she's abandoned her child, and of course they have all this horror at the thought, but they wouldn't have had the horror at the thought if there hadn't been somebody there telling them that they should have horror at the thought. So we pick her up and take her down to the police station. And the police, there's nothing they're going to do unless there's something for them to gain. And so they're asking Don for how are we going to gain from this? Where's the money in it for us? And so Don starts talking to them about the moral consequences and the social consequences when he tells people that the police wouldn't do anything. That got them motivated. And so then they started yelling at the woman. So they all took turns yelling at this mom. And then they all kind of look at Don like, okay, we did our job. He goes, no, she needs to spend the night in jail, because if you don't give her a consequence, every mom who has a baby that she doesn't want is going to come and drop them on our doorstep, and we're going to have dead kids in our woods all over the place because you guys are not doing your job. And he got really upset. He started chewing them out. And finally, the lady that you see in the foreground here with orange hair stands up and says, oh, she starts talking in Pele, which I don't understand. And everybody quiets down, and then she sends this gal. She says, you need to go back in the back and get registered for arrest, right? So they go back, and she's sitting. I can just see her outside of the room, just sitting in this bench. Nothing happens for like a while. And they sit there and tell us about how all the things they're going to do, but they're still waiting for what they're going to get out of it. This is Liberian justice. You get justice if you input a motivating factor, dollar bills, literally. So they're just waiting for us to come up with something, some reason to. Don is just insistent, I'm not paying a bribe. You are going to do what's right. I need to talk to the judge. I need to talk to, finally, this older gentleman that was sitting there, and I think he's, no, he's not in that picture. But this older gentleman stands up. He'd been sitting there the whole time. He just quietly starts talking. And he had some authority because he pointed and everybody got up and started doing things. And so I think he was actually the commanding officer who had sat and listened to this whole thing and finally made a decision that, okay, they're not going to give us money, we'll get something done. So they ended up holding her overnight, and then they had Don bring the team back in to verify that this girl was actually the mom's girl and that they were going to do something about it. So it took a couple days, but we ended up taking her on into the home. I tell you that whole story because, guys, this is a daily occurrence. These things happen constantly over there. Constantly you're dealing with life and death things of little kids that are being abandoned, are being diminished because the life over there has been diminished to the point where they have no familial connections. They don't see value in human life unless it benefits them. So kids are there to support them. And if a kid is disabled in any way, they're less valuable. And so if you got a disabled kid, get rid of them and get another kid. And if you need to get another wife to get another kid, just grab her. And this is the whole point of life, is to provide for yourself. So they're just a totally different mindset. Culturally, it's mind-bending sometimes. And so you're working with these people, and you got to speak the truth, but you got to speak it with grace and understand that they are living in a twisted worldly view, and you have to help them where they're at. So you have to give them grace where they're at and understand how to love them where they're at and minister to them where they're at. You can't expect them to walk the way you would expect someone over here to walk, even that much, And in our culture, we're having enough battles, but there it's a totally different battle, but it's still really the same thing. We're dealing with human nature. We're dealing with the same thing. Back to life in the bush, I got opportunity to be in Denta and be the referee for the big competitive interaction. So that's me in the red in the middle. I'm refereeing, and it was just fun for me to get called in. They had highly competitive inter-village match, and so there was a lot on the line for this one. Apparently, there's some tension in it, but it was a fun game. Totally different approach to soccer, football in their vernacular, than what we have, because first of all, they don't have shin guards, but they also don't have shoes, and so they're playing barefoot. And when you go to kick somebody in the U.S., when you go to kick somebody, you can go right through them, just power through, because you got shin guards on, you got boots on, and you just take them out. They're not going to do that. So they'll come in hard and then they'll stop right with the ball, and they'll hold it, and they'll cup the ball with their foot and not press through. And so a lot of this is almost like arm wrestling, foot wrestling for the ball without really powering through. A totally different way of approaching football. You got the pushing and the shoving and the pulling and all that stuff still going on. But as far as the foot game is a whole lot different. It's kind of fun to watch. Trying to catch the fouls. The next picture is real quick. We had a visiting team. So we had a team that came from Live 2540, came to visit, and then a bunch of other missionaries. And so you have a group here. Monique is a special needs on the left-hand, lower left-hand, dark blue there. She's a special needs therapist. And so she came just to visit his Safe Haven group and help them see some things that they could do to improve and see if she can, develop a ministry that comes and works with them on a regular basis. So she was just visiting, and Don was very impressed. I didn't get to interact with her, but he was very impressed with how she helped the moms, because each home is a mom who takes care of 3 to 4 special needs kids. They're not her own. So she's going in and basically adopting these kids and trying to help them gain life skills. And he said her approach transformed the way several of the moms, in one day, several of the moms were interacting with their kids. She was able to help them understand what the kids were communicating with their body language and how to help encourage them. So it was interesting just to bring her in, and that was a benefit. You see in this group, you've got Abby Riley, who's right next to her in purple, and then right next to her is Becky, who is a Bonga missionary that works with Susie with kids. Then there's Annie Riley, there's Susie, Tommy Riley. I'm just going around the circle there. Let's see, Christian, AB. Looks like that's Gracie next to Susie. Sorry, you probably aren't tracking with me anyway, but AB's up against the door, and then Matt is in the first one in the couch, and then the guy in the middle is Darryl. Good name, but he's the founder of Live 2540. So this is the guy who is funding this clinic. So it's good to meet him and get to talk to him, and he brought a team together. So they're there just to see what we were doing. It's amazing how much he has invested in this team without hardly knowing Don. He didn't hardly know Don at all, and yet he was willing to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in this ministry. I think Don is worth it. Don has shown to me amazing character and amazing pursuit of God, and I really appreciate working with him on that. But I'm sorry? What language? So the official language of Liberia is English. Probably better than 50% of the people that you interact with will know English well enough to communicate. But then from there, it's tribal languages. So the local tribal language in Bong County, because each of the counties is a tribal territory. So Bong County is a tribal territory for people who speak Pele, which is Kpele. And it's not Latin-based at all, so you don't have any, I'm used to Latin-based Spanish and French and these other languages. I can kind of pick stuff up. Yeah, Pele has nothing to do with that, so it's really tough for me to pick it up. But anyway, so in Nimba County, which is one of the places I visited, it's a different language because it's a different tribe. So let me go a little faster here. The next picture is just our job site. We're digging. We started digging, and this is in March, right at the end of March, 26th. We had been digging for a couple weeks, getting the foundations ready. So that's the job site at that stage. The next picture is Victor. He's my right-hand man on the site. I get to work with Victor every day. We start the day off. I talk to Lawrence, Moses, and Victor, the 3 people that I try to touch base with and make sure that they have everything they need to get the job done for the day. And then I lay out what's going on. So Victor's a great young man, fairly very quiet and very he likes to do it right. And that's a good thing to have in your top man. So he works really hard to get things right. And so I've set him on setting up the level and making sure that someone has a laser level beeper going all the time, leveling things off and making sure everything is set. So I've enjoyed working with Victor. Just a little aside, so you're always doing native meals. And I was out with Simeon. Simeon was cooking up a meal, and he asked me if I wanted to join him. I'd just eaten, so I was like, no, thanks. And he's dishing up out of this. They're out in the bush. It wasn't at a house or anything. It was just out in the bush, and he just cooked this up. But if you look, I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but those are a couple chicken feet in there, and that was the meat. It was a couple chicken feet thrown into the stew. And so they have rice and some kind of what they call soup. Soup is anything that's cooked with some meat thrown into it. So it can be a vegetable, it can be just a broth, but most of the time it's a heavier, not a broth as much as like vegetable, like cooked spinach type of stuff. They got cassava, it's always been, in my experience, every dish has been very spicy. They use a lot of peppers. Well balanced. It's not overly hot from my standpoint. But the chicken feet, wasn't really, I was glad I had already eaten. And the interesting thing is, I took a picture of it afterwards. He sat down, and he was done eating in just a couple minutes. There wasn't a lick of anything left. No chicken bones, no nothing. They eat everything. And I found out later that is universally true. I mean, not universally, but for the most part, the natives, if it comes in the bowl, it goes into their stomach, and they'll chew up bones, and it's almost comical. Anyway, I just did one picture of this, but I got to visit just about every week, April through May, so 6-8 weeks. I got to visit somebody's church. So I just went and visited one of the workers' churches each week, and it was a lot of fun. You get to see a lot of the different cultures that way and how they interact and how they worship. So I really enjoyed that aspect. And about then, that was end of March, I transitioned to a four-wheel drive vehicle. And that four-wheel drive vehicle I could secure when I went through town. So now I can go through at night, and that's when I had somebody jumping up on the running board. But I've got all the doors locked. Every time I get into that car, I lock all the doors when I go through town. I've only had that one incident, but it was during, they had a motorcycle accident. A car hit a motorcycle. And I've told you guys before, but they have this system of vigilante justice. Motorcycles are at a disadvantage, and so the motorcyclists know that, and they make sure that if anybody ever hits a motorcyclist, they pay. And so if a motorcyclist gets hit, all the motorcycles around will just immediately swarm that vehicle, surround it so it can't get out, and they'll start beating on the car, and they'll actually pull people out and stone them. So it's not like a funny thing. They're going to burn the car. I went by 2 burned out vehicles, and they told me that's what happened. They hit a motorcycle, and they got burned up. And the driver may have escaped, but the vehicle doesn't. They can't get out of there. And so Don, when I was in there in January, the night before I left, he and his wife went out for dinner, and a motorcycle coming through the intersection got a flat tire and swerved and slid underneath the front of his car. And he said immediately, all the motorcycles were around their car. They couldn't move, couldn't even get out of their doors, and they were pounding on the place. And he's out on a date with his wife, about to be killed. Somebody ran in from the corner and said, no, black man hit white man, black man hit white man, let him go. And so somebody basically from the crowd constantly living that. So it was nice to get a four-wheel drive vehicle that had lockable doors. Now I could travel at night. And, I'm sorry? In the country of Liberia? In the country of Liberia is about 3 million. In Bonga, I would estimate, 50, 60,000 people in the surrounding bush. You look at it on the map and you can see it because they've cut all the greenery down, but they're housing. They have no planning department. If you want to build a house, you build a house, and I'll build a house right next to yours, facing a different direction. There's no streets. It's just all the trails that you're going on, and then you start driving a motorcycle on a trail, and then pretty soon you're driving a four-wheel drive one, 2 wheels on the trail and the other 2 are in the brush until you knock it down enough to get a road. And that's how they do it. I took Sam, we'll see a picture of him later, one of our security guys, to his house, and I literally had to stop and let a mom pick up her housewares that she had set out off of her front porch, because I had to squeeze between her front porch and a well, and it was only like 8 feet wide. So she had to pick all her stuff up, and then I could drive through. When I came back, she'd put her stuff back down, so she had to pick it back up so I could go back through. It's just like you're just winding through all these houses and following the trails. And since I have a 4-wheel drive, I'm the widest thing that goes through for the most part. Next picture is my elixir. I live on this stuff. It's great. I mean, how can you go wrong with sugar, creamer, and coffee? And that is the priority order: sugar, creamer, coffee. But it's good. I enjoy that stuff. It's all Don's fault. He got me hooked on it. This is Prince and his wife. Prince is the ministry artist. So he's the one that's painting all the pictures. Again, they're an oral society. So they learn by hearing, but then they also use visual to enhance that. And so if they can see it and hear it, they will remember it. And they memorize stuff. And Don says it's an amazing thing to watch them memorize, because you'll have, Western culture people have to sit there and repeat it like 10 times and write it out. He says they go through it once and have a visual, and they'll have it memorized, and they'll have the verse memorized, they'll have a passage memorized. So he's taken them through memorizing whole books of the Bible. And so each day they'll memorize one verse, and they'll come back the next day, and he says they've got it. And they'll have the next verse, and they'll have the next verse. And so he's going one verse at a time through the book of Mark. His son, Christian, just before I left, finished memorizing the book of Romans, the entire book of Romans. This is his son. I'm just impressive. The kid is, he knows his theology. He's got a pastor for a dad, so of course he does. But it's just an amazing thing to be that much into God's word. All that to say, Prince is the one that enhances it with visuals. So he goes with Don through a passage and says, okay, what picture shall we show? And then he paints it. And Don helps him sketch it, but then Prince lays it out. And the story of how Prince came into the ministry is really interesting, because Don was praying about, I need to get something so I can get these guys visual. And I need to get an artist. And so he's going to go down into Monrovia, 4 hours away, and hire an artist. And he said, well, there's an art show. So he's going to go to this art show. And he drove up, and he said, oh, man, this art is disgusting. It's all, naked women. And, it's like, I'm not going there. And he drove past, and he said, God convicted me. He said, I told you to go in there and get an artist. He's like, but their pictures are horrible. No, I want you to go in there and get an artist. So he turned around and went in, and he said, pick the best artist, the best art. And he says, I like this one, but the collection has all these X-rated pictures and stuff, and I don't really want that, but who's the artist for this? Well, he gets the name of the guy, and he says, okay, I need to commission you to do a drawing. So he commissions him to do a drawing, and he starts commissioning him to do several, and finally finds out this guy's fronting for another guy. And that other guy was Prince. So this guy was getting all the money and then paying Prince a small piece for doing all the work. And long story short, Prince came to know the Lord after being hired, and Don walked him through the gospel. And as he walked him through the gospel and had him paint the pictures, he accepted Christ and started walking with the Lord. And he is just the neatest heart. And then he's gotten married to this young lady that's behind him in that picture, Ellen. And they're just a neat couple. I enjoy just watching them interact. She'll just sit there. She now works for the ministry. She got hired on in end of April. She works for the ministry. And so she comes in and cooks. But when she gets her break, she'll come up and sit and watch him paint. Just watching her husband. It's just so cool to watch. That, she just loves being in his presence, watching him do stuff. So anyway, I get all kinds of entertainment. I have some visitors at night that are a little different than others. This is me. I was walking up to my bungalow, and this is about 10 feet in front of my door is this kind of gray-shaped thing laying there. And come to find out, it's a spotted night adder. This one is not cytohematoxic. This is a nerve poison. He freezes your nerves when he bites you. Most any snake that you get bit by, if it's poisonous at all, you're basically dead because there's no antivenom in the area. You have to go 4 hours to get antivenom, and you're pretty much dead by then. So they are very averse to snakes. So this guy, he looked a little stiff, so I massaged him around the head and shoulders. And he was very relaxed after I got done. He was laid right down on my stick. But, well, back to more fun things. I get to see little, this is Timapa, Timapa, Timapa. She comes running up and says that every morning, Timapa, Timapa. And finally, I asked her grandma, what is she saying? Because she's just, Timapa, Timapa, Timapa. And I can't hardly even understand it. She's going so fast. She's, take my picture. Timapa, take my picture. So she wants her picture taken. So, of course, I took a picture because she's just too cute. But that's I get to interact with her. Here's another interesting roommate that I had. Couldn't figure out this one. But it's related to a spider, but it's technically not a spider. It's a tailless whip scorpion. And very few people that I talked to had seen one, but some of the older guys had. Menson knew all about him. He's the agriculture director, and he knows, they live here and they do this. But anyway, they're kind of an interesting critter. Some people were saying they're harmless. Some people were saying they're deadly poisonous. I didn't really give him an opportunity. I just took him out. I didn't want, he was sitting on that, you see that wood there, that's the windowsill above my bed. I was not going to let him hang out there. So I took him out. Next picture is we got to go on a quick trip. I did a couple trips while I was there, and I got ready and one day, and by the end of the day, when I said I was going to go do it, there's like 5 people going with me. And they all want to go. Everybody wants to go anywhere because nobody has a vehicle. Everybody's walking, and I'm going to their hometowns, which is 3-4 hours drive away. And if they're gonna go there, they're either gonna walk or they're gonna hook a ride with a motorcycle. So some of them hadn't been to their home for months, if not over a year. So they're all excited to go. So we had a great trip. These guys, this is Daniel. I went to church with Victor, and then I picked up Victor and Uriah, and then we picked up Daniel and Simeon. All these guys just started hopping in. It was kind of funny because I thought I was taking Uriah. And then I ended up with Uriah, and then Victor came along. And then Victor came along, and then Simeon came along. And then Simeon, on the way up, he said, you got to stop and pick up Daniel. And we picked up Daniel. And so we have this whole crew of guys. But they were great guys. We went through this ride. This is Daniel and his grandfather on the left and his father on the right. And he's somewhat estranged from his father. But Daniel is really a sweet-hearted man. I really have enjoyed his spirit. He leads in singing every time we go singing, so he's very animated about it. But the next picture is of Simeon. Simeon's story is amazing to me. The guy. So this is a picture of his grandfather and his grandmother and his mother. So his grandparents were the ones that raised him. His father was a pastor, and in the war, 2000, it was in 98, 2004, somewhere in that time frame, he was a pastor in the bush during the war, and so he had a church going, and the rebels came into their church, and well, short story, they killed him. They martyred him for being a pastor. He wouldn't give them money, and so they said, well, we're going to crucify you like that Christ that you worship. And so they crucified him and killed him. Simeon was born the next day, and his dream is to be a man like his father. And he's a young Christian. He went off the track, but in the last couple years, he's come around to wanting to be a man like his father. And so he's learning about Christ, and he's hungry to know. And so he and I get together every week. and study the Bible. And he just asks questions, and we go through things. So it's been fun to work with him. And his grandmother, I just impressed with what they've done with him for a young man in Liberia. Next picture is a picture of Uriah and his family out in the bush. That's his brother, the very first one on the left there, and his kids and his wife, and then aunts, uncles, and grandmas in the back there. So the trip that we had was a lot of fun. I got to see a lot of country and a lot of different things, but I want to get going, get back into town on Monday, and we see what the job looks like from there. We had job site picture. This is what it started to look like. We're starting to get progress. So this is April 16th, so we're 2 weeks later than the last picture. Meanwhile, the next picture shows us what was the ongoing stuff that we're dealing with. February, this little guy, Nathan, was brought in, and he came into our N1014 group. This is the babies that we support. So Susie picked this little guy up. He was brought into the ministry and said, this baby's going to die. So she started working with him, and then the next picture, 3 months later, is how he's changed. Just from her making the mom accountable to feed and care for a little baby, giving her the means and the training to how to deal with a baby. And so it's transformational in these little guys' lives, one at a time. It's just fun that we are involved in supporting that as a church. Next picture is one of the little things, sidelights that I've gotten into is working with these guys on their dreams. One of the things Don says is they don't have dreams. They just live hand to mouth. They're trying to survive. They're trying to find food. They're trying to find money to make ends meet just to get food for the day. And so a bunch of them have come. I think I've done 6 or 7 house designs for these guys so that they can see what it's going to take to build a house. And they all have tribal property that they are owner of, but they can't do anything with it. Takes them forever to save at $4 a day to make, if you want to build a house, a $6,000 house, and you only make it $4 a day, how are you going to do that? And so they have to figure out a way. And so they, of course, come to the white man and want the white man to solve the problem for them. Just give me the money to build my house. And I told them, I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not here to give you money, but I am here to encourage you. I'll help you draw the plan. I'll help you make a plan on how you're going to get there. How much money are you going to have to save? What are we going to have to do that? And so I've walked through that plan with a couple of the guys, and it transforms their thinking because now you're putting not only the responsibility, but the authority on them to take control of their life. And now they can say, oh, I can get somewhere. It's not just that I have to find that white man to give me something. I can take control of my life and start doing something. So it's been fun to see them start doing that. So I have spent many nights working with guys designing houses. Got a trip or two into Denta, which is the town where we're supporting the school there. So Hope for Home has a school. They're 100% managing this and supporting the school. And so they have all the funds for the teachers. They have the housing. They are putting up a school, physical building there. But until they get that done, they're doing all the schooling in village buildings. So this is just another ministry that Hope for Home does for kids. And this is in Denta Town. DK is the guy standing there in the picture. And he's the principal. He's also my construction supply manager. So whenever I need concrete in volume, like 800 bags, or I need 700 sticks of steel, I talk to DK. He has contacts in Monrovia, and he goes in with the money and buys the materials and then has it shipped back in. So he plays multiple roles. He's a really great guy, neat Christian man, and I enjoy working with him. When we went out to Denta, one of the things that we did was we bring all the teachers back for a weekend in town because Denta is 10 miles out, and you don't just walk back and forth 10 miles every day. So they are living in Denta as teachers, and then they get to come into town. They have to either buy a motorcycle taxi or they get a ride. So we put them in the truck with us, and we hauled them all back. And it was just neat to hear these guys' heart for what they could do for these kids. Because one of the things that they're dealing with is the reality, we're fighting Satan directly. There's witch doctors out there that are trying to get these kids commissioned into the witch doctors' realm. They call them the Zoe. And they go out into the woods, and they brand them. What do you call it? They do permanent tattoos on them that say that they are a part of the Zoe's tribe, whatever. They mutilate the girls as part of the initiation process. And so part of what they're doing in this school at Denta is saying, we cannot support that. So if you allow your child to go, then you can't come to school. And they'll lose the opportunity to get the education that they would get. If it's a free education, and nobody gets that in Liberia. So that's very valuable to them. And so Don has drawn the line that if your kid goes to the Zoe Bush, which is the Bush school of initiation into witch doctorism, then he can't go to school. And so they've gone through a big rigmarole about that. They kicked out a bunch of kids this last year, wouldn't let them go into school. And just yesterday, the village owner and the village tribal chief came in to Don, 10 miles in, to talk to him and say, please let our kids that went into Zoe Bush into school again, because it's just not fair that we are supporting that whole school in our village, and our own kids in our village. They're coming from other villages, and they're going to our school, and our kids can't go. Why is that? That's not fair. And but I told you, if you go Zoe Bush, then we cannot have your kids in our school, because we cannot support Christ and the witch doctor. It doesn't work. And so he's in this battle where they are fighting him to get these kids back into the school, and he's trying to hold them out and hold the line. So we were praying about that this morning when I was talking to him, how to handle that and continue on that process. So all that to say, these guys, when we were driving back in, Don's talking to him like, how can we keep these kids from going to the bush? And the kids, these kids, I call them kids, teachers, they're all in their 20s. We'll stay all summer long, and we'll just do activities for the kids so that they don't go in the bush. We'll give them games, and we'll do soccer with them, football. We'll do football with them, and then we'll do study clubs, and they can learn whatever they want to learn, and we'll do crafts with them. We'll just stay. So they're volunteering to stay an extra 3 months in the bush with these kids just to keep them from going. It's just so cool to hear their heart to save these kids from that. So many things. This is Menson, and let's see where I'm at. I'm getting there, right, Brian? We're progressing. I'm over 2/3 of the way there. This is Menson and his wife, and Menson is the agricultural director for the whole group, and so he raises chickens, and he raises all the food that they can for the ministry to feed the kids. And this his wife, she's in her mid-20s. She's in 9th grade. This is the reality of the education system there. You get into it when you can get into it, and you get it as far as you can go. So she's trying to graduate. But meanwhile, back in their town, she has started a school. And so she has been saving up money and paying for building a school for herself, for her hometown kids. So they wanted to take me on a trip to visit their town, and I said, okay, let's figure that out. So they showed me where that was. This is 2 hours, 17 minutes to get to Bonn, which is out in the bush. So going to Ganta is a paved road. That took us about an hour. The rest of that trip took us about 3.5 hours. The first picture here is the paved road. Next picture here is a paved road in Ganta. And then leaving Ganta, you drop off the pavement. And the next picture is some of the country roads that we were in. That's downtown, whatever it is, village that we're going through. It's African backcountry. Next picture is another picture of the country. It's beautiful, beautiful backcountry Africa, not a soul around for miles. So I enjoyed it because I'm from the country. So it was like being out in the woods here. There's just nobody around. It was really nice. But we got a surprise visit on the way there. We stopped to visit with Isaac. Isaac was one of Menson's key workers. Isaac and Menson went to school together. They were raised together in this area. And so they were best friends. And then they moved into Bonga together, and they're working together. So Menson, standing up there, is the boss, and Isaac is his right-hand man. Next picture is the group that went with us into the bush. So there's Sam, who's one of our security guys. The little guy down there is Zodawan. I call him Z-Man. He comes and hangs out with me. And then that's his mom. And her name is Lorkear, Lakar. And I couldn't get that. They had to say it multiple times for my deaf old ears, but Lakar, and they spelled it out, and I still didn't get it. But anyway, it's Zodawan and Lakar, and we call Titus Menson is his name. Titus is his family name. And I found out the story behind that is his grandfather was adopted informally by a white man who helped him get educated. And so he got him educated, and when he became educated, it raised him up in society. And so he became the top man in his culture. And so all of a sudden he was able to do all kinds of things, and he was economically highly benefited by what this white man had done. So he appreciated so much what he'd done, he took on his first name as his family's last name. So he took on the family name of Titus, because this man's name was Titus, who had raised up. And that man moved away and never came back. He raised him up, gave him a college education, and disappeared. And so in a commemoration, he took his family name, named him Titus. So everybody in his family's named Titus, but he goes by Titus. I call him Menson because I found out his real name. That's next to him is the young lady next to him is Isaac's mom, and Isaac is next in the striped shirt. And then there's my key man on the job site, Victor. These guys all of a sudden, I was not going to have anybody along because this was going to be a family trip for Menson. I was going to go meet his family and stuff. And these guys all were like pressuring me, come on, I can go, I want to go, because everybody wants to go. And I'm thinking, no, this is for the family. I said, it's Menson's family. And they went to Menson and said, hey, can we go? And he goes, sure. So they all climbed in on the last minute, literally. Sam, as I was getting in the car to leave to pick him up, Sam comes running out. Hey, they said I could come along. Like, you have a family, aren't you going to, and we're going to be gone for 3 days. He just, at the last minute, jumps in the car and goes for a 3-day trip. They're all excited because I said, do you have family out there? He goes, no, I've never been out there before. So it was a big deal to go on a trip. So anyway, this is Menson and his mom. Got to meet her. And we went to church with them. The next picture is the church. And we filled up the parking lot. There wasn't a single other car in the entire village, let alone the parking lot. So that really wasn't a parking lot. We just parked on the trail. And that was our weekend. It was a lot of fun. One of the things I found out about Menson that is interesting. Brian, could you go back to the picture of Menson and his mom? That guy at age 18 founded the church that we just looked at 18. Then he went to every village around and evangelized. 3 days a week, he would go out on evangelism and preach the word to every villager in the villages around. When he got done, he established his church. You can go back to that church picture, Brian. He established his church, and he got that going. Then he moved to Banga, and he founded a church there, and it's now one of the biggest churches in Banga. And I didn't know that. He never told me. He comes in, and we do Bible study every week, and he is the most ferocious reader of the Word and asking questions and just proactive in everything. And then I found out just this last week all this about him. I didn't know. I went on this trip with him. I didn't know it. He's founded multiple churches all over the country. This guy is just an evangelist. He's 30-something now, but he's an evangelist from the word go. It's amazing. So it's been interesting to get to see that. I will go back to him. He's actually sent me notes even today, because I send out every day. I send out a oral Bible lesson. Some of you have been on my Bible notes I send out. Well, I'm not sending those out anymore because I just don't have time to get everything done. But I take those Bible notes and I give them orally, because they can't read. Not all of them can read. Very few of them can read. And so sending them Bible notes wouldn't work. And most of them can't get email anyway. But they all can hear. And so they asked me, can you send us a recording of what you're doing? And so I've been sending out oral things. And so he's been pinging me back pretty regular with comments on what he's learning. And I like what you said about Elijah. And I didn't know about this. And just going after all this stuff, because they don't have the biblical foundation that we have. They have whatever's been told to them, because they don't read. And so whatever's been told to them, and a lot of the pastors don't read. I watched one pastor sitting up at the pulpit, and he's got the Bible sitting down in front of him, and it's upside down. And he's just going through, flipping the pages, adjusting his glasses every once in a while, looking and talking. And he's not talking about anything that has anything to do with the Bible. He's just talking. But he's got the Bible up there, so he looks like he's an official pastor. It was interesting. So anyway, all that to say, it's been fun in that regard to be in a spiritually hungry area. And there are people that are spiritually hungry here. I don't mean that, but these guys are so needy for anything. I just grabbed all the old pew Bibles that we had here, and I'm going to take all those back, and they're going to disappear like that. If they can get a Bible, they will suck it up. So I'm going to give those away. Let's get back to our trip here. This is the walls on, let's see, I'm thinking that must have been the right in the middle of May, I guess, first part of May. But they're putting all these columns up. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, that picture there is the string line. When I first came there and I looked at a wall that they'd made on a residence, the residence wall was 90-some feet long, and there was a 6-inch bow in that wall horizontally and a 4-inch bow vertically. So that wall was arching all over the place. And they said, this is a great wall. This is really straight. And I was like, no, this is not. This will not work. And so I started talking to them about it. And this is the result. They started on this. That's 140-some feet of wall with independent columns. So they can't just stack one wall next to the next. They have to set up a column and stack it and get it straight, and then set up the next one 6 feet later and get it straight. And they are within half an inch over 120-some, 140-some feet. It's amazing. Complete transformation in how they do work. And it's been fun to watch. They're willing to listen. They're willing to work with me. And they tell me sometimes, Darryl, you're crazy. We can't do that. And so we have to work out a solution. But they're working with me. So it's been really fun to have that camaraderie with this work crew, that they're willing to work with me. There have been some guys that haven't been. And you know what? Lawrence fires them. It's interesting. I go talk to them, and this guy, they beat the block. They are making their own concrete block. You don't buy this stuff. You mix it and form it right on the site. And I said to the guy that was forming the block, I said, I need you to make that tighter. He said, I can't do that. And Lawrence just walks over and goes, okay, head out. I don't need you on my job. That was just end of story. The wrong attitude. I don't need that. And he hired a whole new crew, and we got another crew. We went through 3 crews that way. And then some of the guys started coming back and say, oh, okay, yeah, we'll work with you. because they realized that Lawrence was serious. I mean, the white man, yeah, he says he expects crazy things, but when the Liberian guy says no, then they know that it's not going to work. So it's been fun to work with Lawrence. Next picture is I told you Menson and I get together every day or every week and do Bible study. We're sitting out underneath this tree here, and I look over to his right and I see this little garter snake going through the weeds. Like, there's a little snake. Menson jumps up, spins around, whips off his shoe, and whoosh, bam! 20. That snake was about 15 feet away because as soon as he jumped off, that snake took off. But before it did, when he jumped up and went up and flared, it was a cobra. It was a little cobra, and it just stopped and like, whoop, you're not going to do anything to me. And then he saw Menson moving, and he laid down and just took off as fast as he could. And Menson hit him on the fly with his shoe and killed him first shot. It was hilarious. I mean, I don't know. I was going to take a picture of it. Didn't get a chance. That's the way I found him on the left. That's the way I found him in the bush, where after Menson nailed him with the shoe. So we hung him up, and the ants took care of the snake. So you see all those little orange things? Those are ants, fire ants, and they'll eat up the snake. The next day, there's not much left, and in 2 days, it's just a little bit of skin left. They eat the whole thing. The job on May 13th, the job is moving right along. The tie beam is they're at about 90 inches right there. And the next tie beam is coming up. As I work with the guys, they wanted me to come down and eat lunch with them. So I set a date, and I was going to come in and eat lunch with them. But I don't really get to eat lunch with the guys because you're a white man, you eat with a boss. And so I eat with a boss. We have a bowl, common bowl. You put a little soup on the rice, and then you each take your spoon out of that bowl. Well, the guys just beyond the tree on the right here, there's 15, 20 guys around one bowl. And they just dump the soup on the rice, and somebody just takes a big spoon, mixes the whole thing up, and everybody's diving in while they're mixing it. There's just like this massive feeding frenzy. Not really. It was more like, Brian's hog feeding experience would have been apropos for describing it. It was just like, bam, they're all in there. So that's why the white man doesn't eat with them. He's held to a higher standard. So I get a separate little bowl. But they also wanted to have a team photo. So we got together, and that was like herding cats, of course. You got 50 guys, and I don't know if you count, but I doubt there's even 30, 40 guys there. All 50 guys want to be in the picture, but none of them would stand still long enough to get the picture taken. So I have about 10 pictures, and each picture there's about handful of different guys in each picture because they're just moving through. But anyway, that's the crew. Fun crew to work with. They've been really, really good to work with. I've appreciated that. I have a video here, and I don't know if I can play a video. Brian, can you play a video on that? No, I can play it on here, but you have to go down to the bottom, and I hit the little arrow. Not working? Okay. So this is just a picture of all the construction just before I left. And it's looking pretty good. We've gotten up to what they call a tie beam. We're on the second tie beam. So we got up to this level. That's 99 inches to the top of that concrete beam right there. I've now got 6 more blocks on top of that, and we're getting ready to put the tie beam on top of that. So this is at 99 inches. Oh, there it goes. Those are the 2 bosses. That's the rock and roll guy there. The one in red is Lawrence, and the one in green was Moses. So Lawrence is my head contractor, and Moses is his uncle, and he's his job site supervisor. So Lawrence does all the coordinating for materials and making sure the laying out the work and who does what, and then Moses is on site all day long doing quality control and stuff like that. Anyway, that video didn't work out very well. Sorry about that. Go to one of my last couple pictures here. This is a picture of Zodawan. Zodawan discovered that he could go to Darryl's office. because his dad works in the field every day, and he's got school some days, but other days he doesn't. So he came to Darryl's office one day, and they couldn't get him to leave because there's all kinds of toys in Darryl's office. I have all the tools stored in my office. If you look in the corner, there's a bag of shovels, all the hammers, and everything is in the corner there. So he just goes over and grabs toys and plays all day long, draws pictures. He's spent the last week or so at my office just about every day. Menson says all he talks about is Darryl at home, and I think mostly the draw is all the toys in Darryl's office. But it's great to have him. He sits there. He's 3 years old, and he'll just talk constantly in his little 3-year-old voice. And I can't understand him, but he's just talking all the time, singing and doing and drawing. And I can ask him things, and he'll do things. I asked him to draw a picture of his dad, so he'd draw Dada. He'd draw a picture of Dada. So I got that much out of him. So I gave it to his dad. His dad was thrilled. Picture of me? And so he took that home to show his mom. But then I guess this last picture won't work. Brian's getting ready to play it. This is the singing at the church. I just love that. It was fun. That was one of the more energetic choirs that I got to listen to. I threw together a little sampler of all the things that I've been going through the last 3 months. It's been a long evening. Do you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like to hear more about? I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do in the ministry side of things, because I'm running this through the Lord, how I pay for all this and how I do all this. So I'm trying to figure that one out. They Live 2540 is paying my expenses to travel and to be there. So they're paying my engineering expenses for registration and all of I told them what my business expenses were. And so I'm looking at if I'm balancing out, if I can do that. God is going to take care of it. I'm just praying how I'm going to balance that and what I'm going to do. I appreciate your prayers in that. I do have, in my last time there, I took money over, and boy, I told Brian, you could just dump all the money you have into all the needs that are there every day. And so you're constantly giving away stuff, and it's actually kind of fun to be able to bless people. But that's what I've been doing with my money that I brought over there, because I thought I was going to have expenses, but they've been paying my expenses, so I just use the money to bless people. If you want to support any of the ministries that you're seeing in there, you can go directly to Cornerstone and give to the Africa ministry. You can go Darryl Africa or just Africa, and or you can go online and get the ministries that I showed at the beginning of this site or this presentation. Their websites all have places where you can donate to support these ministries. So that's what I can think of. Any questions? Do girls get to go to school as much as boys? It is a bit of a challenge, and it's more as they finish out, and depending on their cultural family situation. But for the most part, in the scenes that I've seen, the girls are getting to go through the system as much as the boys. But if they get pregnant, they go do something like that, then that draws the girls out of the system. So they're obviously trying to keep that from happening. We could go into a whole long story about all that stuff, but for the most part, they are making it available for both boys and girls, and balanced pretty well on that. So that's a good question. Yes? The 3 red circles that I showed on that were security. So the security is human threats for the most part. Um, in a place like that, as I was told, anything $5 or more in value is worth your life. So if they see something of value, but they're fairly easily deterred. So having a body out there with a flashlight slows down. There is a fence completely around the compound, and there will be a fence completely around the hospital, and there will be 24/7 security. But it is the human threat that they're dealing with, and it's not. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. It's criminal activity basically. You're just trying to put in enough deterrent that they're not going to risk going out there. There is, again, it's vigilante justice, and so if someone is caught stealing something, they will start yelling rogue. And I had it happen on the job site, or we did, and I was there. I was up on the hill, and so we're a couple hundred yards away through the trees, and all of a sudden you hear just like all this commotion, verbal yelling, screaming, and stuff. And I'm like, okay, better go find out what's going on. Somebody get hurt or what? I go down through the bush and come across the creek, and I look, and they're all milling about. And I said, what happened? Somebody's phone was missing. And so whoever was missing their phone started screaming, rogue, rogue, somebody stole my phone. And everybody just went berserk, and they found the guy who had the phone, and it was a guy who had picked it up. It was beside the palm tree, and they started yelling, my phone's missing. And he walked over, and he looked, and he goes, here's your phone. You're the rogue. And they started yelling at him. And he said, no, I just found it right here. And so they tried to get the whole thing calmed down. But it's vigilante, and they stone him, string him up if they decided that he stole. But they didn't. They calmed it down. We had our security in there at that point, and the security actually calmed it down. So that's their job, and they did a great job of it. But it was interesting to see. They take it very seriously, crime, because vigilante is the only way they get justice. If you don't have vigilante justice, you don't have anything, because you have to pay the police to help you. So, the security is there for that reason, because if you don't have a deterrent, you're going to have problems, but it's somewhat easy to deter them just by having a presence. So. Any other questions? It'll be a concrete floor. So the clinic, you asked if the clinic would have a floor, and I have a microphone, so I have to get that across, but it will have a floor, a 4-inch concrete floor, which is twice as thick as they normally do. Then we were debating on finishes, but right now I think what we're going to do is dye and polish the concrete so that we can maintain it easier for the life of the building. So yeah, that's we'll have a concrete block wall, and then they will what I term parge it, but they call plaster it. And they'll put a cement coat on it and finish it off that way. So you won't see any of the block work by the time you get done. It'll just be a concrete wall, and then they will probably paint that, and then they'll put murals on that. So that's interior finish. We'll have a metal roof, and right now we've opened it up. We have almost 3,000 square foot of windows, and so we have close to 8 feet of glass vertically all the way around the building. And then we have another 4 feet of glass up top in the clear story. And so that airflow can go up and through the clear story, and we'll get some air movement. So we're trying to passively cool the place because it's all done by solar or generator power. You don't have power grid out there. And so the less power we need to manage the building, the better. And so spend some time trying to figure that out and optimize the design a bit. So we'll see. I think we've got a pretty good solution in hand, and then we'll enhance it with some fans. But overall, that's the kind of the building design that we're working with. Yes. So you're talking about the logistics of medical supplies and that's a challenge because you're 4 hours away from the port, and even in the port there's nothing's available. So if you want to order something, you have to order it 3 to 6 months out from the States. From Europe, it's maybe a little less, but so there some of those things are like that. We just ordered oxygen machines. And we ordered them in England and got them packaged up. That was started that process back in January, February. And we just got them packaged up, and they're being shipped down in June. So that's several months just to get those, specialized equipment like that put together. You can't get, simple things like screws. I wanted to screw the rafters together because that's a better way of fastening than nails. I can't get screws. I have to import them from the U.S., and that will be 3 to 6 months. So I won't do that. I'm just going to nail it together, but I'm going to get some glue. Well, to get the glue, I have to special order that. So we special ordered some glue, and we'll try and put that together so we can have a assembly. But, yeah, supplies, especially in Bonga, where you're 4 hours from Monrovia, I couldn't get I just wanted like a outlet strip, and it took me a couple weeks to find one in town to get one. I sent the guy out to get them and came back, can't find it. What was the other? There's another thing I wanted. It was just a simple thing, and they said, no, you're just going to have to go to Monrovia, 4 hours to get some simple little thing. So it's only stuff that you can get at, like a 7-Eleven. That's kind of like their stores there. You can get that kind of stuff, but other than that, you can't get major stuff. You can get produce and stuff that's produced locally. You can get, but as far as manufactured goods, very limited supply. So, Dave? Yeah, the ongoing operational costs for this facility are fairly large. Like you're talking tens of thousands of dollars a month to keep this thing operational, and they have cash flow in place to manage that, and that's part of what Live 2540 is working on, is they are the financial basis, and so they have promised to work with providing funds for the medical staff so that they have salaries for medical staff so that they can make sure that they have staff in place in the long term. So they work to do those kind of funding things. And it's a matter of, what God supplies and the body supplies. But the body has been pretty faithful in supporting Don's ministry, which is significant monthly outlay in itself, and now we're adding a 12,000 square foot medical clinic on top of that. It's going to be a huge financial commitment, but God has been faithful to fulfill it, and that's something that we can donate to here. Those are things that we can work to support. Just pick a position and support a PA at a couple $100 a month or something. Those are things that we could do in the body. You can support a kid, or you can just give to the general fund, and a allow them to manage the money. So those are things that we can look at. And that's one of the things I want to open the door to, that we can look at these things. So, yeah, good question. Anything else? Thank you for listening. It's been a blessing to be over there and to be a blessing, and it's a blessing to get back here and share with you guys. And I'm going to wind up and head back out here in a week. So it's been a whirlwind trip coming back, but I'm looking forward to what God's got in front of me. He's opened the door for me to do some things that I've been praying that I could bless the kingdom with the skills He's given me, and that's what He's doing. So I'm blessed to do it. Thank you very much. I'm going to close in prayer, and then we'll call it a night. Father God, I thank you for this opportunity to share what you're doing. I pray that you would bless this time, bless this message that I laid out. Use it for your glory. Bless these people and their hearts for listening and pursuing what you're doing. I pray that you would bless them in their walk today. In Jesus' name we pray.